Now the next topic is elastic potential energy. If you suspend a wire here of original length L, so this is L, original initial length, so I am calling it as initial length, and if you suspend some load here, so this is the load suspended from this one, let me take it as F. So due to this load, what is the extension produced here? Little extension, I will take it as a small l. The Young's modulus of this wire is Y. Now in terms of these categories, what I am going to write, the Young's modulus of this wire is given by stress by strain. So Y is equal to, what is the stress here? Let us say area of cross section of this wire is A. So stress is given by force by area, and the change in length is L and original length is capital L. So I am going to write a small l by capital L. So Y is equal to F by A. Small l by capital L become capital L by small l. So what is this F? The force acting on this one is given by Young's modulus of this wire, cross sectional area of this wire, increase in length due to this force by original length. So this is the force acting in terms of the other quantities that we know. Now if we increase this force from this force, let us say from 0 newtons to 1 newton, and then 2 newton, and then 3 newton, and then up to F newtons. Now what happens here? We know that for every increase in load, there will be some increase in length of this wire. And if it is obeying Hooke's law within the elastic limit, we are doing some work by suspending some force here, some load here. So when the load is increased here, the length of the wire gradually increases. That means this force is doing some work against the intermolecular distance or intereconomic forces. Now let us say this is one molecule here, this is one molecule. When the force is applied here, distance, this will go up, this will come down, because otherwise let us say it is fixed here, it will come down. That means the intermolecular distance will increase. So as I explained earlier, whenever these two molecules are separated by some distance, there exists a restoring force which will try to bring this one to its original position. So we are doing work against that intermolecular force. So whatever the work that is done, work done externally against intermolecular forces or interatomic forces will be stored as elastic potential energy. Just like if you take a bow, this is the string here. If you stretch the string to this position, so this string will have some energy. That energy due to stretching, here we are also doing the same thing. We are changing the configuration of these molecules. Initially in its position, the initial position, these are the molecules 3, 4, 5, 6. I am just showing only 6 molecules. Now this molecule will come here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The separation between each and every molecule will be different, and they are along the same straight line but not along the same straight line here. That means to change this configuration, I need to apply some external force. That means I am doing some work against the configuration or against the intermolecular forces. This will be stored as elastic potential energy. So how to find out the energy stored in this one? To find out this potential energy stored in this one, first I need to calculate the work done in stretching this wire or work done in elongation of that wire. So I am going to find out a small force, let us say I am applying a small force for a small change in the length. I am not going to take the original length or this change in length for this one. For a small force, let us say the change in length is dl. So what is the small amount of work done? Small amount of work done for a small elongation, for small elongation. This is given by dw is equal force into displacement. So what I can write? dw is equal to, what is the force from the first equation? So this is the total Young's modulus of the wire, area of cross section of this wire, change in length of this wire by original length. This is the force into increase in length or elongation produced is dl. Now this is equation 1. How to find the total work done or the total energy stored here? So first of all, let me find out the total work done. The total work done, W is given by integration of dW from 0 to L, because this is a small elongation produced here or here, generally we denote here. But if the total elongation is L, then the initial elongation was 0, the maximum elongation produced in this wire is L. So this is the total elongation produced in the string, and this is the total work done. So I am going to find out W here. So W can be written as integral. What is dW? This is YA small l by capital L into dl. So I am going to write YA small l by capital L into dl from the limits 0 to L here. Now you bring the constant terms outside. What are the constants here? The Young's modulus of the wire in this experiment is constant. So this is integral. Before integral, let me bring the constant outside. So this y is a constant, area of cross section is constant if the load is not too much. If load is too much, if it is beyond that yielding point, gradually area of cross section will decrease. Now by the original length is constant, now the remaining terms are integral L power 1 dl from 0 to L. We know that integration of x power n dx is equal to x power n plus 1 by n plus 1. So we are going to use the same formula here. So as it is L power 1, we can write L power 1 dl is equal to L power 1 plus 1 by 1 plus 1. So what I am going to write this will be L power 1 plus 1 by 1 plus 1 with limits 0 to L, and the constant that I have already brought outside were YA by L. This is the total work done. So which is given by YA by L. So this is L square by 2 here. So I am going to write this as L square by 2. So this is the total work done, that is Young's modulus into area of cross section by original length into L square by 2. Now this can also be simplified as W is equal, I am going to take this 1 by 2 common here, 1 by 2, this is Young's modulus into area of cross section by original length into L square. If you multiply this equation with area here and length here, this is length by length, the original length of the wire by this one, multiply with L by L. So what we are going to get here, this will become half into Young's modulus into this area into length is nothing but volume of this wire. This is L square. L into L is capital L square. Remember students, this is half into Young's modulus into this is change in length by original length whole square into volume of this wire, because area into length will become volume. This is the total work done. This total work done is stored as elastic potential energy. So what we can write, the elastic potential energy stored in a wire is given by U is equal half into Young's modulus into this is change in length by original length, which is given as a strain whole square into volume of the wire. So this is how you can write the energy stored in a wire. So now we can convert this into different forms here. So first one is, so energy stored in this case, U is equal to half into y into strain square into volume. Now, what is the energy stored for unit volume? You just bring this one this side. This will become half into y into strain square. But we know that y is equal to stress by strain. In place of y, if you write stress by strain, you can write this potential energy for unit volume. Potential energy stored per unit volume is given by U by V is equal to half into, in place of y, I am going to write stress by strain. So this is stress by strain into strain square. Here strains and get cancelled, and the final expression, generally we use this expression in examination to solve the problems. That is, what is the potential energy stored for unit volume? So potential energy per unit volume is given by half into stress into strain. Stress into strain. So this is the expression that we are going to use in solving problems. When the wire is suspended like this, so the force is acting like this is the applied force. So this is the applied force, and the strain produced is in the direction of this force only. So this strain we call it as a longitudinal strain. At the same time, if you gradually increase this force step by step, the length of the wire gradually increases. At the same time, there will be one more strain, that is a change in diameter of the wire to the original diameter. As the length increases, this diameter or the radius of the wire will decrease. So this is a strain produced in this direction. That means the radius is decreasing like this. Here length is increasing like this, but this strain is produced perpendicular to the applied force. Why? Because here applied force is downwards, but strain produced is perpendicular to this one. That means for this force, this strain is 90. So the strain produced in the wire perpendicular to the applied force is called lateral strain. So this is a new strain that we are going to learn now. So this lateral strain is nothing but change in diameter by original diameter. If you observe this one, change in length by original length. Change in length is increasing, original length is constant. But what about the diameter? So here this original diameter, this length is increasing, but diameter is decreasing. So we can take it as negative also. Now the ratio between this lateral strain to the longitudinal strain is known as Poisson's ratio. So this Poisson's ratio sigma is equal lateral strain produced in the wire due to the applied force to the longitudinal strain. So sigma is given by delta D by D by delta L by L. So this is a Poisson's ratio. Remember, Poisson's ratio has no unit and no dimension formula. Why? Because we know this strain, longitudinal strain, has no unit. Even this lateral strain has also no unit. Why? Because this is change in diameter, original diameter cancels. So no unit and no dimension formula for Poisson's ratio. It's a number only. So generally this number lies between 0 to 0.5. So this ratio lies between 0 to 0.5. Applications of elasticity. The first application is to know the quality of material. So how to find the quality of a material? Already we studied this by using the stress strain curve. The material may be a ductile material, it may be a malleable material, or it may be a brittle material. So by studying the stress strain curve, we can decide whether the material is having that ductility or malleability or brittleness, and also whether it is a hard material as well as a soft material. So these are the applications of elasticity. That means after studying about the elasticity, we can apply that concept in deciding these materials into, or categorize this into ductile, malleable, brittle, hard and soft. Second one, this can also be used to find yield point of the material. So what is the use of finding this yield point of a material? We know that while constructing these bridges or big structures, we need to find the yielding point of that particular material. So if you know this one, already we discussed this, if you give that 1/10 or 1/8 safety ratio, we can allow that load only on that material. Now, in third case, in designing beams or pillars in bridges or large constructions. So these are some of the applications of elasticity. So what is this designing these beams or pillars? Generally, if you use this rectangular beam as a pillar in a building, so this is the slab and these are the pillars provided at regular distances. Now, here what happens, due to the load on this slab, let us say this is a bridge here, due to the continuous load on this one, these pillars may buckle like this. Buckling may take place. They may buckle at its center and they may bend like this. Now, how to reduce this buckling? To reduce this buckling, it is found that if these pillars are made into I-beams, these are called I-beams. So it is found that if the pillars are made into I-beams, this is one, this is the second I-beam here, and if you construct this bridge over this one, so these I-beams are said to have more load. That means they can bear more load here, bear more load, that is nothing but more stress. Now, you can see this type of structures in almost all bridges. So generally these steel beams are made like this in constructing the bridges. You can see these type of structures, as well as even these railway tracks. So in the railway track also the structure will be like this only. So these are the different structures that you can see. So these are said to have more load bearing capacity than the ordinary pillars. So in designing this also we are using this elasticity. If you take a plastic wire or steel wire, let us say this is steel wire having some cross sectional area like this. So let us say it can bear X Newton per meter square stress. Now, if I want to make more stronger, what I am going to do, generally you might have seen these wires are kept like this, twisted together, 2-3 wires twisted together like this. Like this. So these wires will be twisted in such a way that they can bear more load. So here what we are doing, in the previous case the cross sectional area of this wire was A only, but in the next case the cross sectional area was increased to this much, let us say NA. We know that the breaking stress of any material is constant, whether it is steel or rubber, what will be, they will have a fixed values. So here let us say this steel wire has a breaking stress of some, this one, this is X Newton per meter square is the breaking stress in this example. Now here the breaking stress is given by breaking force by area. So what is the breaking force? This is a breaking stress into area of a cross section here. So in the first case, in this one, what is the breaking force on that material? The breaking stress is constant for steel. This is X and area A. So the breaking force that can be used on this steel wire, that can be kept on this steel wire is XA. But what we did in the second case, this breaking force in the second case is given by what is the breaking stress of this steel wire, because these are all made of steel only. So this remains as X only. But what about the cross sectional area by twisting all these wires? Here we are increasing the area, so this will become NA. That means we can keep more load on this one. So I think in our house also we are using these type of plastic wires to hang the cloths on it one. So why we are using these twisted wires? When we are twisting these wires, we are increasing the cross sectional area. So breaking stress is equal force by area, that is breaking force by area. So by increasing this area, as the breaking force is fixed here, so this value constant for a given material. So as we are increasing this area, we can increase the breaking force. That means we can keep more load on this one. Here also the same principle that we are telling in a general rectangular beam, here area of cross section is less. But what we are doing in these pillars, I-beams, so these are called I-beams. So what we are doing in I-beams also, just like this steel wire and a twisted wire, the area here is less. When the area is less, it can bear less force only. That means load that can be kept on this one is less. If you keep more load, and it will buckle like this. But what we are doing, by increasing this area, by increasing the cross sectional area, so what happens if you increase the cross sectional area? It can bear more force, because we are increasing the breaking force of this I section. Similarly here also, in a railway track also, this area is more than the cross section somewhere here. But why we are not using a big pillar here instead of this one? If you make a big pillar, then why we are not using these type of pillars? These pillars are too costly. That's why to reduce that cost, what we are going to do, we are making the structure such that at the intermediate stage, in the middle stage, they will have less material. So we are saving the material here. By saving the material, the cost of these pillars will be less when compared to the complete pillars like this. So I am removing this load here. By removing this load, this material here, I am making this into I-beam. So I-beams will bear more breaking force than the ordinary beams. Why? Because reason is, even if you take this one, now this is a rectangular beam, let us say it can bear 100 newtons. Now if you reduce the mass here at the middle, not too much, at the middle, if you reduce this one, then they can bear same amount of force, that 100 newtons only. If it is too small, then it may break here. So at what load this I-beam may break, so that we have to calculate before manufacturing this one. That is possible only by studying the elastic property of the material that we are using in constructing this I-beams. Similarly, as I explained earlier, in case of this load, this construction of bridges also, here we used one formula for depression or dip, WL cube by 4 BD cube by. Now let us say this is a bridge here. So this is L, this is width, and this is the thickness. Now if you construct a bridge like this, the depression produced at the middle, or that this one is given by this formula. Now if you keep the same structure, but if you keep it like this, what happens? I am not changing the length, but the width will become height here, and thickness will become width here. So if we use these type of structures here, what happens? I am increasing this one. If I am increase this one, the depression will decrease. How many times? Here let us say the depth is increased to double. That means here depth is d, here depth is 2d by rotating this one. So this is inversely proportional to d cube. If it is doubled, d dash will become 1 by 2d whole cube. This is 8d cube. So depression will be reduced by 8 times. So these are the small factors that can be used while constructing these bridges to have more strength and to have less dip or less depression in these bridges. We know that the maximum height of the mountains that are present on the surface of earth is always less than 10 kilometers. This is always less than 10 kilometers. So why it is always less than this 10 kilometers? See, height of this one is always less than 10 kilometers. If you see the Mount Everest, so this is around 8,864 meters. So we can write this 8.864 kilometers. Why we cannot see mountains having height more than this one? So for this also we are going to use this elasticity concept only. Now here, when a mountain is here on the surface of earth, the bottom rocks has to apply some force on this mountain to keep this mountain in this position. But the entire weight of the mountain will act vertically downwards. So what is the weight of the mountain? So weight is given by mg, which is given by, we know that density is equal to mass by volume. In place of mass we can write density into volume into g. So density into volume of this one is given by, generally if you take this cross sectional area A, height h, so this is area into height into g. So the weight of the mountain is given by this equation. We know that if the weight is exactly equal to the normal reaction given by the surface of earth, then we can keep this mountain in this equilibrium. So what is that normal reaction produced here? The normal reaction force given by this one must be equal to the elastic limit stress, or we know that stress is equal to force by area. So what is the force that can be provided here in the vertical upward direction by the rocks on the surface of this earth? So this is given by stress into area. So which stress we have to take? In a stress strain curve we have different stresses. One is stress corresponding to proportionality limit, stress corresponding to yielding point, stress corresponding to upper yielding point, stress corresponding to breaking stress, and stress corresponding to breaking force. So but we know that to keep it in the safety, this stress must be the stress up to this elastic limit only. So what is the force that can be applied by the rocks on the mountain is called, this is the stress corresponding to elastic limit only into the area of cross section of this one. So this is equation 2. So for this mountain to be in equilibrium, this weight or the force must be equal to the force exerted by the rocks in the opposite direction. So I am going to equate these two equations 1 and 2. So what I am going to write, this force corresponding stress at elastic limit into area. So I am going to write this as elastic limit stress. Now the elastic limit for this rocks on the surface of earth is found to be this value 3 into 10 power 8 Newton per meter square into area A. So I am going to take this one as equation 2. So this is the force exerted by the rocks. Now equate these two. What I am going to get? So left side we have, this is exactly equal to that force. So this force is equal to rho A G H. This force is given as 3 into 10 power 8 into A is equal rho A G H. Here A get cancelled. What is this H? H is the height of the mountain. So the height of the mountain in this case is given by, this H is given by, H is equal to 3 into 10 power 8, 3 into 10 power 8 by rho G. So this is the value that determines the height of the mountain on the surface of earth. So if you know this H value, now this is 3 into 10 power 8 Newton per meter square by, what is the density of rocks? The density of water is 1000 kg per meter cube. The density of these rocks is around 3000 kg per meter cube, and we know the G value is equal to 9.8, but let me take it as 10. So this can be written as 3 into 10 power 8 by, this is 3 into 10 power 4. So this will become 10 power 4 meters. So what is the maximum height of the mountain that can be present on the surface of earth is 10 power 4 meters, which can also be written as 10,000 meters or simply 10 kilometers. So the maximum height, if the height of the mountain is more than 10 kilometers, then weight will be more than the this stress corresponding to elastic limit, then yielding will take place. It slowly gradually goes into the earth, so that it can maintain the same height. That's why all the mountains, that is maybe Alps or these Himalayas, will have a height more than, it cannot be more than 10 kilometers. They are always less than 10 kilometers.